Is going on, Sales Dev Squad? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sales Dev Squad podcast. I'm already getting excited for our guest here, Mr. Patrick Downs. But no, all jokes aside, we have Patrick Downs, who is currently the sales trainer over at PandaDoc. He's also the co-host of the B2B Growth 5 on Friday podcast, which is awesome. We've been chatting a bit before this podcast here. Very interesting background, lives in a lot of different cities here in the United States, and just a huge fan of his content, his flavor, so to speak, and what he kind of provides to the sales community. But Patrick, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast here. Really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Of course. I hope we can rename podcast to Patrick's so I can grow my ego one more size.
Love it. I guess, Patrick, for our audience and our viewers here, do you mind just giving us maybe like a quick intro on who the real Patrick Downs is? I guess a little bit about your background and what you're up to now.
And that's a big idea, right? The real Patrick. I don't know. I'd say like we're wearing masks on top of masks nowadays with social media. So yeah, it's weird. I'd say that deep down, I'm a teacher. I'd say that's what I'm best at. And you mentioned film. That's probably what I love, right? So like when I was younger, I wanted to be a film teacher, and it's changed. You know, as a kid, you have all these ideas about what you want to do, and I feel like I've cycled through all of them. But it really comes down to I want to like lift people up, and I want to make people feel good and better at what they do. And I love the whole idea of making people kick more ass. And being in sales enablement and training now, it's one of those moments like when I was talking about being on a film set where you're just like, oh, this is it. Like, this is what I should be doing. And I feel like everybody has a couple of those things. And I feel super lucky to have been able to find that in my career so early.
Absolutely. Really appreciate that intro there, Patrick. One thing that I've really noticed from just following you on LinkedIn for quite some time now, going through some of your content, is you have a really interesting way of just showing who you are and what you're all about through your content. You're definitely not following the herd by any means, and you sort of like to carve out your own voice, so to speak. I was just hoping you could kind of touch upon, like, how did you, I guess, learn and understand like the voice or the brand that you wanted to portray to your audience? And I guess I can really feel that like charisma is a huge part of what you do. I was hoping you could just kind of touch upon like how you kind of found that inner voice and how you're able to so cohesively portray that in all of the content and posts that you do on LinkedIn, because I'm definitely a huge fan myself.
Thanks for telling me it's cohesive, because like sometimes I feel like I'm just screaming into the void senselessly. So it's good to hear that there's some symmetry there. I'd say it happened through a complete, like I just completely gave myself away to like the content and to what I type for so long in my life in general, and not just what I was posting on social media. I feel like a lot of people that I had to fit myself into some sort of box or to some sort of standard, and it was super limiting in so many ways and soul crushing. I mean, even if you take that and extrapolate it out to my normal life, I would definitely go into an office and put a mask on and then go home and cry, honestly. Like to completely stifle who you really are is soul killing. And I think I came to that realization a couple of years ago, and since then I've just been 100% myself anywhere I can be. Obviously, like I'm not a perfect machine that's able to do it all the time, but as much as I can, I try to just completely remove all the filters of my life and just speak right from the heart.
Hmm. I guess in your opinion, like how important do you think it is for sales leaders, sales reps, or just anyone in general to really be genuine and focus on finding their own uniqueness within their own voice and their own message, and just delivering upon that and executing upon that? I guess like how important is just being your genuine self as it pertains to your career or just in general?
I'm curious, do you feel like you've run into a lot of sales leaders that you feel are trying to fit in a mold and less being themselves?
Yeah, like you kind of alluded to before, kind of like sticking to a safe formula, and not really just thinking outside the box. I can definitely sense your creativity and your creative mind, from your content specifically. And then I just love how you really prioritize that and you put that at the forefront of, what you do. So I'm curious, like, I guess, like, how important do you think it is for SDRs and sales reps in general to, just be genuine in every interaction that they have with their prospects or their managers or, their coworkers?
I think it's really important. Kind of two statements about that. One, I think people tend to want what they are, right? Like the reason that oftentimes your friends are so similar to you is because you're looking for stuff that kind of matches. So I think oftentimes if you're working with a lot of really genuine people, they're going to want a leader that's super genuine. But just in general, I think people crave the real factor, and I think it's because of so much of the social media generation. Again, I love social media, but it has created this new problem where people are portraying a secondary life that doesn't really exist. And so many people know that it's not real, but we're sort of playing along with it anyway. So I think when we get into an office environment or even just being around acquaintances or friends, we just crave that feeling of like, is this person being real? Like, is this an actual interaction or is this for an audience?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like even us right now, this could easily so just be an act, and this could just not be who I am. Right? I could come on and act for you, but that's not what I want to do. And I think that's really fucking important. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't do. And I think especially in a work environment, you're having to play this role of I'm this brave leader who never cries, and I'm not scared of this quota, and like we're gonna do, like we're gonna just smile and dial, and this whole thing. It's not real. There's no way that every single sales leader believes that. We're not all people on a line, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't make sense for them to believe that. So it's just this kind of uniform they wear. I think people are just sick of seeing it.
Absolutely. I love that there. And, I love what you guys are doing over at PandaDoc. And, I noticed that for your, podcast that you do for Five on Friday, it says right here on LinkedIn, it's a place for sales professionals to gather feedback from their peers. Um, like, I guess in your opinion, like, how important is it to, as a sales rep or just any professional out there to, not only gather feedback from watching podcasts or reading books, but, actually speaking to peers or people in your industry or, other SDRs out there, as opposed to, maybe some traditional methods.
I think it's super important because if you look at almost any podcast or what have you that you're going to be trying to gain sales insights from, it's probably from somebody that's been out of the game for at least 5 to 10 years, sometimes 20 to 40. And that's the kind of person that might have a lot of insight into a specific process, but I really doubt that they've been the one sole owner of a number that they're responsible for themselves and selling it alone. And that's a specific thing that you need when that's what your job is, because there's a different kind of pressure. Because now that I don't have my own individual number, I have a different kind of pressure, but it's not the same thing as being a salesperson feeling like you're completely alone. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the reason why it's so important to have your peers' feedback is because they completely understand it. It's a one-to-one. They know what you're going through and they know the challenges you face, and they're selling right now with you in the same market a lot of the time. And I think that's the key.
Mm-hmm. What was the inspiration to starting Five on Friday?
It actually came from Francois. I ended up hitching on with him and Amy Quick. They had started Five on Friday. We met on a networking post on LinkedIn, and he liked my content and was just like, love to have you on, and we just got along really well. But I think we were all attracted to it just because we saw there was a gap. And like I said, it's just all people that haven't done it in years giving advice. And
Mm-hmm.
Frank and Amy are both still in individual contributor roles, and they let me in, thankfully, to help because I'm still kind of on the ground level. But the real point is to even get more people from the community that aren't us to come in and give feedback as well.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Appreciate that. So I guess kind of shifting gears here, moving back to your experience over at PandaDoc. See that you were like an AE and IC for about a year, just over a year.
Mhm.
And then you moved into sales enablement and training, which I feel like you have a really big passion for helping people, like you mentioned earlier. Just you're a big teacher and you love helping people. Just from your experience, from obviously doing that for quite some time, I'd love to hear your perspective as far as what sales enablement, what that means to you. Obviously, sales enablement functions a bit differently in other organizations, but in your opinion, I guess the way you guys rock over at PandaDoc, like what should be the expectations and duties of sales enablement?
It's hard. I think it's probably the most recently added profession in like the tech sales slash just sales in general field.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows what it means. I still feel about my company that asked me to do stuff, and I'm like, that's not my job description. It happens every day. It's not their fault. It's just that nobody knows. It's one of those things where there's a huge gap. And for me specifically, I am focusing on training. And I think some organizations use their enablement resources mostly for training. And then others use it for like developing messaging and like figuring out new processes and things of that nature. But it really depends. I feel like it's the kind of thing you can fit to whatever needs you have. And depending on like where the company is, especially on funding rounds, like if I'm a Series A company, probably don't have any processes yet. So that's going to be my main focus. But if maybe we're getting close to IPO, it's probably training and get everybody like on the same level. So I think it really depends.
Mm-hmm. I guess like what does a typical day look like for you? As far as like
Look at
where
my
you
calendar. I could pull it up and show you.
let's see it.
Like today, yeah, let me get this on here. Can you make me a screen share?
Yeah, I can make you owner here. Let's see. All right. You're the host now.
Oh man. And just like I kick you right out and I take over the podcast.
That would be
I
one
can
hell
see
of a
that happening.
podcast.
It's like, welcome to my new podcast. It's your host, Patrick
You're the
Downs.
new host of the Sales Dev Squad podcast now.
So my role is weird because I not only train people, but when they're in their ramp period, they report directly to me. So like I'm in the forecasting meetings, right? We have a pipeline health meeting, we have a funnel meeting. I get on my reps calls. So like you'll even see that like tomorrow at 7, I got a West Coast rep I'm gonna be meeting with.
That's 7
I'll have
p.m.
7 p.m. Yeah. I like I said, 18-hour day yesterday. I got people on the West Coast and the East Coast. I'm making calls into people's pipelines. I'm training like one-on-ones, right? So pretty similar to like what a manager would do. Internal meetings. So like I report to the VP of sales with the director of sales and a director of sales development. So like I'm working on with them on different processes, figuring out like different changes to compensation, progression models, things of that nature, things that like affect people's career growth as well is a big focus for me. Also, I help as far as like the content that's created by marketing. I'm kind of the bridge between marketing and sales. So this morning we had like an ROI training prep where we're trying to like build a new ROI calculator. So I'm giving them the whole
Nice.
process, what we do, stuff like that. So lots of different things.
Nice. I see you got some PTO tomorrow. Well deserved.
Yeah, man, I haven't taken a day off in like 2 or 3 months. So I'm about to attach it to July 4th.
So I guess, Patrick, how helpful was it for you to have actually sold PandaDoc software in terms of you helping other sellers sell PandaDoc?
I feel like it's almost impossible to do the job without selling that product first. I feel like if I were to ever go to another organization and do sales enablement, I would ask them if I could do 6 months as a seller because I would have no idea how the people I'm talking to feel and what they're actually experiencing. Because there's this thing that happens with like, God bless their heart, the senior leadership, where they'll say stuff and I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about? You know, and it's not their fault. It's just that they don't see the day to day. And I was able to see it. So I have a different perspective. And I think that's so key because you are the bridge between every organization and the sales department. And you need to really know what the hell is going on.
Definitely. Couldn't agree with you there more. And I love how you've actually, I mean, you sold for a year, which is very impressive. And I really got to tip my hat off to you because I don't think a lot of people are willing to get their hands dirty and furthermore, just take that knowledge to help out other reps. So I really got to commend you for that, Patrick.
Thanks, man.
And I just wanted to shift gears here. I feel like we both have a pretty big passion for film, but you, most importantly, you lived in Studio City. You mentioned you worked as a PA. What kind of shoots did you work on when you were a PA out here?
It was, do you know the show Baby Daddy?
Yeah.
It's that show. I was only on set a couple times, but it was pretty bad. And don't tell anybody I said that, whoever's listening. And my roommate at the time worked on According to Jim, so spent a lot of time on that set.
Whoa, that's a big
We were
one.
right in the yeah, it was fun. We were right in the back lot of CBS at the time we were living there.
So I guess, I mean, Hollywood's definitely a wild animal to say the least. Could you kind of highlight maybe some of your experiences in Hollywood working on an actual set and maybe how that kind of helped you out as you shifted gears into like selling later in your career?
It's funny. I was just talking about the idea of team selling today, right? And how it's kind of a miracle when anything happens. And I don't know if you've never been in leadership before and seen how the sausage is made, you don't realize how much people are just kind of winging it. It's sort of like when you're a kid and you think, oh, my parents have this completely under control. And then you get older and like, they had no idea what they were doing. I almost died, right? You got so close to dying. It's like my dad left my face next to the exhaust pipe when we were at the grocery store and stuff. You know, that's how I feel about leadership. And it happens at every company. And the company's still really successful. And that's when you start realizing this is this huge team where it's kind of a miracle that things work out. And I feel the same way about movie sets where there's, you know, these hundreds of disparate moving parts. You got the grip, you got the director, you got the people running the camera, you got the extras, even the people running craft services. I mean, if you forget the little mini sandwiches, your lead actor is going to throw a fit. And if all of these things don't completely mesh together based on like two or three people's vision of what it's going to be, it's just a disaster. And I feel like it's kind of similar to sales where like everybody has to just kind of like come up to the plate with this vague vision of what they want and just sort of put it together and do the best work they can. And then at the end, you look back and you're like, all right, it worked. Cool. That was kind of a miracle.
That's awesome. I guess when you envision you like being in Hollywood, I'm sure you'll still get that chance to do it. Like, were you looking to head more towards like the writing side? Like, are you a storyteller? Do you like the cinematography part of it, or being like a leader on set, like producing? Like, where do you kind of see yourself, man?
Dude, I want to do every single one of those things you just listed. I would love to run the entire production. I am a control freak, so that would probably need to happen. I would need to self-finance something probably. Even though I like working in a team, I like having like those important aspects completely under my control. When I was in AE, I didn't like even SDR setting appointments for me because I wanted to control the entire thing, and it just freaked me out. I'd rather be full cycle. Um, yeah, so for me in general, I don't know, man. It's kind of a crapshoot though.
Hmm. Hmm. That's interesting, man. Well, this has been a really awesome conversation, man. I guess, it's definitely like a really tough time out there for sales reps in general, just trying to close deals, trying to book meetings, trying to land a job. I was just hoping very briefly you could just provide a few tips for, anyone out there on the job market, any suggestions, any advice that you could help share with them during this tough time.
Similar advice I give to somebody when they're prospecting is it's mostly around mindset. A lot of people take rejection super personally because when they're applying or they're prospecting, it's like you're rejecting me because of who I am. And that's not what it is. And I think if you can completely divorce yourself from the outcome of whatever is happening, then you're going to be able to be way more efficient and good at what you're doing. And you're also going to feel more powerful because if I don't feel bad that I got rejected 100 times last week when I was applying for a job, when I do get in the hot seat, I'm going to have so much confidence and be able to run the interview like I'm the one interviewing this person. But if I have been rejected 100 times and I take it personally, there's no chance I'm going to have that confidence. So I have to like stay in my power and know that when I do get the opportunity, I'm going to kill it. And then if I even don't get that, then I'm just going to move on and go to the next one. And I think that resilience is going to end up paying off.
Absolutely. I think that the job process is pretty similar to how the actual sales job is. So having resilience going in will definitely help you throughout the job. And and hopefully on your way up. So really appreciate that, Patrick. I guess for any sales leaders out there, any SDRs that were inspired by our conversation here, or maybe even some Hollywood producers that took the time to watch this video, where can they reach you, Patrick?
The best place to reach me is going to be on LinkedIn. I'm just going by Patrick D right now on LinkedIn, so find me there. That's my first step towards having like the Hollywood name, right? Feel free to message me. Also at my PandaDoc email, it's patrick.downs@pandadoc.com. And please check out 5 on Friday. We just launched a UK branch, so every Friday we have 2 different sets of live meetings going on with free consulting services. So love to see you guys there.
That's awesome. I just followed you guys on LinkedIn, so I'll definitely be included in any future reminders here. But Patrick, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast today. I know you're going to go into hibernation for the next 24 hours or so that's rightfully earned. And hope we can have you again next time. Maybe we can collaborate on some video projects in the future.
Oh, I'd love that, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Sales Zip Squad, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. We will catch you guys on the next one.